What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. Joining me today, fresh back from Las Vegas, Jimmy Watkins, and alongside him, you know him, you love him, Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter. And guys, we have to get into the final stages of the offseason for the Cleveland Cavaliers, specifically because they still don't have a full roster. They're still looking for their 14th man on this roster. And obviously, I know NBA standards say that you have to have at least 14 players with a maximum of 15 players on the roster to start the season. And I've been a big proponent of the Cavs need to go get a true enforcing big. Well, that is not a hot commodity of players that actually would fit in the Cavs system, that could make an impact, all of these different things. So as much as I would have loved for the Cavs to have signed somebody in unrestricted free agency earlier on into the process that could have been a more enforcing big and more rebounding and all of these things that I've talked about on previous podcasts at length, it doesn't look like that's the best option for the Cavs in the last bit of free agents still left on the market. So I picked two different players that I think could fit into the Cavs system. It would make sense. And then, Jimmy, I was telling Chris before the podcast started, I got two head turners that you guys might scratch your head about or just laugh me off the show, but we'll get into those later. The first two names that I have that I thought could potentially make an impact on this Cavs team, Malcolm Brogdon and Chris Boucher. Those are my top two guys that are still on the free agency list that make sense. Either you get a wing/guard in Malcolm Brogdon that can defend, can shoot, has experience, or Chris Boucher, another stretch power forward type player that has experience in the playoffs and has the opportunity to play alongside Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and Larry Nance Jr. I think he's a good fit as well. When you talk about the scoring acumen, when you talk about the defense, when you talk about the length and the stretch that the Cavs like to play with, and he can run and gun as well. But guys, as we talked about on this podcast before, it's more so what the Cavs need than a who the Cavs need at this point, 14th roster spot. But I want to ask you guys this. If you could pick a skill set, a type of player, a wing, a guard, a big, what do you think the Cavs need? And if you have a player in mind, list them off. Who do you think the Cavs should go get with this 14th roster spot? Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah, for me, I just wonder, guys, about the readiness of Craig Porter Jr. to step into a bigger role. I know the Cavs have been viewing him as, a backup point guard at the NBA level for the last couple of years, but I just don't know. This is a team that has championship aspirations. This is a team whose starting point guard is probably going to miss some time at the beginning of the season. They let go of Ty Jerome, or they decided not to bring back Ty Jerome in free agency. So I think one of the things that they have learned over the last 3 to 5 years is just how many playmakers they should have on the roster and what this team and what this offense looks like when they're short on playmakers, when they're short on point guards. There are times, this was a couple of years ago, where they had to rely on Kevin Pangos to actually dribble and organize and just get some minutes at the point guard spot. So I think in some ways it's kind of been a cursed position for the Cavs, but I think given the situation that they're in right now, I think it would benefit them to have another ball handler. I think it would benefit them to get some more depth at the point guard or shooting guard position. If it's a shooting guard that can run the offense, great. If it's not a shooting guard that can run the offense, then a backup point guard or a third point guard, somebody that can battle with Craig Porter Jr. I just don't like the idea of putting too much on the plate of Donovan Mitchell and just saying, hey, this is Donovan Mitchell. He can handle this responsibility while Darius Garland is out for however long he's going to be out. And I don't like the idea of putting more responsibility on somebody like Lonzo Ball. He's going to have playmaking responsibility, obviously. He's going to have a versatile role where he does a little bit of playmaking, a little bit of creating. You want him to do those things, but I just don't think you want to overdo it with Donovan or overdo it with Lonzo because you just don't have enough depth at that spot. So to me, that's kind of where I would look first. Malcolm Brogdon is somebody that I've had on my radar for a number of weeks now. I don't think this is the situation that he'll choose. I think he wants a place where he can play and play real NBA minutes. And I think he's waiting to see where Russell Westbrook goes and then go somewhere else that has an opening at point guard potentially. I think Corey Joseph is interesting because here's the other thing. Beyond just what kind of skill set, what player are we looking at here? It has to be somebody who understands what this role is. It has to be somebody who's willing to come to a situation and maybe never play and never complain about it and never start saying some things behind the scenes about a lack of playing time or a lack of consistent minutes or something along those lines. The beauty of Tristan Thompson in the particular role that he was in last year is that he was never going to say anything about playing time. He was never going to sit there and chirp about not getting opportunities because he knew what he was signing up for. And whoever this is that comes here, they have to know they're guy number 14 on a team that has championship aspirations. And there's not really a pathway to playing time, at least consistent playing time, especially when this team is at full strength.
So I would hope at this point of the process, July 28th, that those conversations are almost built in. Like if you are an unrestricted free agent right now, and you're in contact with the Cavs, who have one roster spot left, sure, have the conversation, but I feel like we should kind of understand each other. Like this is a team that won 64 games, that did some light rotation shuffling, but didn't make any major changes. Like you kind of should know, like like to Chris's point, Malcolm Brogdon might not want that role. That's why Malcolm Brogdon won't show up here, right? Like I was thinking of a name I would throw out there for a similar role. I was thinking I want Lonzo Ball insurance as well, and just extra playmaking. If Lonzo's healthy, that'd be great. Between Brogdon and Lonzo, maybe together they give you 82. Another guy like that, Monty Morris, who has not played. Let's see, Monty, your basketball hasn't played more than 45 games since 2022-23. You don't love that. He's going to be in his age 30 season next year. You don't love that. But veteran, steadying presence, has put together some playoff runs before, can run your bench. Like that's stability. That's a guy whose career 39% 3-point shooter on 3 attempts a game and limited minutes. Like at this, again, also, while these other unrestricted free agents need to understand where the Cavs are, I think the Cavs need to understand where they are in the ecosystem right now, and beggars can't be choosers, and every player at this point is going to have some sort of award. That's why they're out here throwing out some center names. I don't mind Chris Boucher. I think he could actually play. He could play some 5. He did that with Toronto. If you want a small ball, another small ball option. Again, Larry Nance Jr. has not been the picture of health over the last few years of his career. So if you want some depth there, I get that. Precious Achiuwa, similar. If you want like your old school, I get rebounds, let me be a tough guy, I've been in the playoffs, DeAndre Jordan, like actually played in the play. Like I was there. It happened. Actually played in the playoffs last year. I was watching on my television. I couldn't believe it was happening, but it did happen for Denver last year. And then I was if for an Isaac Okoro replacement, like innings eater, defense first guy, about Gary Payton II. Like there's a lot of moving pieces in Golden State right now. They are orienting their entire offseason around what Jonathan Kuminga is doing. Bad thing to do, by the way, kids. Don't plan your off seasons around Jonathan Kuminga. That's not going to work out well for you. You're going to miss out on a lot of good other options while you're doing that. But like we've heard them, like Al Horford seems all but assured to go there. We've heard Seth Curry's name floated in that direction. We've heard Ben Simmons' name in that direction. I'm just like, hearing all this stuff, and it's like, well, what's happening with Gary Payton? Because Gary Payton II, a little bit shorter than Isaac Okoro, but 6'8" wingspan, and has actually contributed to a deep playoff run before. Wow. Now, let's not get crazy. Gary Payton II is not a good 3-point shooter. His playoff track, like he shoots 1.5 threes a game career in the playoffs. He's not going to shoot a lot, but he's done enough in those playoff runs to let Steve Kerr keep trusting him. And they've even they would go super small and Gary Payton II play like de facto center at times. They were doing some crazy stuff with Gary Payton II. And I'm not so sure how that would work with the Cavs having one non-ish shooting down. We can't really even call Evan Mobley a non-shooting big anymore, but other big people who like to occupy paint space from time to time, that would be challenging. It also needs to be pointed out that anyone who's ever played in the Warriors system was playing with Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson for most of their careers. That's not a realistic offensive environment that can be created in other places. Those are the two greatest shooters of all time. They both have the defense's maximum attention always. They create space that other teams are going to struggle to create. That being said, Kenny Atkinson runs a lot of similar concepts to the Golden State Warriors. Him and Gary Payton II know each other. They were both a part of that title run. They might speak the same language. Gary Payton II has been a DNP guy for long stretches. To our conversation about can he embrace that role, I think he could. He seems to be a likable teammate. He makes a lot of sense to me. And if we're just looking, again, the Cavs didn't make many changes, but big picture, they replaced Ty Jerome with Lonzo Ball. They replaced positionally Tristan Thompson with Larry Nance Jr. If we're going position for position, the one hole that they actually haven't replaced yet is the Isaac Okoro spot. Now you could just say that DeAndre Hunter, Dean Wade, Sam Merrill will suck up those minutes. I think that's fine. Yeah, Jalen Tyson. I think that's fine. I think that's a fine solution going forward. But if you want another Isaac Okoro type guy, we just had the conversation all playoffs about this defense up to snub right now. That's not a question we really anticipated having on that kind of level. This is another Swiss Army knife type piece that you can deploy at your will, and I think he would be agreeable to a bit role.
The belief around the NBA has been that Peyton's either going to go back to the Warriors or join the Los Angeles Lakers. I guess we'll see on that sort of thing. But you bring up a point about him having a relationship with Kenny. At this point, when you're filling out your roster, a lot of these coaches have been using that last roster spot as just somebody who can be an extension of them, somebody who can be just a guy who understands the system, a guy who has familiarity with a coaching staff, a guy who has a built-in relationship in some capacity. And Gary Payton II certainly does have that with Kenny Atkinson. It's just a question is there a better situation waiting for him out there? And is it one that he thinks would potentially have a little bit more of a path to playing time? Javonte Green kind of fits that mold too. Obviously, the Cavs brought him this season, and they talked about his defense, and they talked about him getting through screens and his physicality and his athleticism and stuff like that. I think he's a possibility just because of the time that he spent here with the Cavs, getting to know this team, this roster, this organization, the coaches that were a part of it as well. I wouldn't rule him out. But I do think oftentimes when you're talking about this guy, lots of coaches in the NBA and JB Bickerstaff did the same thing. You're just bringing somebody in that can speak the same language that you speak, and they can help just because they can be an extension of the coaching staff and there's a level of familiarity there.
I also wouldn't hurt a little more new blood, this team has not again, not massive drastic changes or anything like that. I just think that can get a little stale in a locker room. A lot of these guys have been repeating similar talking points over the last couple of years. They've had similar experiences. Wouldn't hurt to bring in somebody who has deep playoff run experience with Kenny, but has it from a different perspective. Can, maybe even like in a meeting, jog Kenny's memory about something they did in Golden State, like something like that. I don't hate the idea of new blood. Also, I feel like Javonte Green's just like older Gary Payton. They're very similar players.
Okay, time to get into my crazy options that you will probably not like, but
how about this? Wait a minute, real quick. I just did some research. Gary Payton, older than Javonte Green. Learn something every day. Learn something every day.
Interesting. But as I was saying, as someone that I know is older than Javonte Green and Gary Payton II, Russell Westbrook, a guy with a lot of grit. I know, Jimmy, I know you do not like this idea. A lot of grit, a lot of playoff experience, someone who has seen his role decline over the past years, but still has that extra burst step, is learning to be a better defender, is a great leader, and is being told from NBA players around the league, is a great teammate as well. I think there's a lot it feels that he feels is left on the bone. And if there's one person that I feel like is still in this unrestricted free agency class that is ring chasing the most, it might be Russell Westbrook. And also, we talked about the point guard necessities for backup duties and all these things. Plus, I do want to point out that his name has been linked to the Sacramento Kings. So whether or not this is feasible and all these things is still up in the air. But Russell Westbrook's one of those guys where I just think you want to see what he has left and how he can contribute to a winning team, a winning organization. And you saw a little bit of that with Denver and how he was able to make some passes. Obviously, he averaged like 6 assists a game last year, which I think is comparable for some of the players that the Cavs have on the roster, especially coming off the bench.
Okay, so there are a couple of things. Well, I did not expect you to say Russ. Of all the people out there, I did not expect you to say Russ. There's some truth to the things that you're saying, but no. He is used to playing 20 minutes a night, and that's just not available here. And you talk about ring chasing. Depending on the situation that a guy is in, they probably do want to compete for a championship, but they want to compete for a championship on their terms. And they want to be a part of a team that wins a championship and not a cheerleader for a championship team or not a bench warmer for a championship team, especially somebody like Russ, who it feels like he still believes that he can play and he can play at a high level. And he's never not averaged double figures in scoring throughout the course of his career. So I just don't think he played 27 minutes a night last year for the Nuggets. No, that's not available to him here. And I just don't think, I think there are certain people that, yeah, he can be a good teammate, and he probably is a good teammate when he's happy, when he's getting the things that ultimately he may want. Like, if you believe that he is a good teammate, if you believe that that is part of who he's been throughout the course of his career, he's also been competing for MVPs throughout the course of his career and playing as many minutes as he would want. And I just think he's the kind of guy where the minute things don't go the way that he wants them to go, playing time, opportunity, role, usage, all that kind of stuff, you're going to hear about it. And you're going to have a very unhappy future Hall of Famer behind the scenes that could be disruptive to your chemistry. And you might sit here and say, well, Donovan could help police the locker room. Max Strus can help police the locker room. Russ is a big personality now, and he has been throughout the course of his career. So there are so many different reasons why I say no beyond just I don't know how he would fit in this kind of offense, the style of player that he is, and defenders shading away from him when he's out behind the 3-point line. But the biggest thing to me is I think whoever this is has to accept a specific role. And there is no way that Russell Westbrook is accepting a role that is going to have him be the 14th man on a team that is competing for a championship and he's only going to play 12 to 16 minutes a night, if that, and that's probably at the high end.
Does that sound like a good teammate that Chris just described? Didn't sound like a good teammate to me. Russell Westbrook's such a good teammate that he's been on 6 teams in 7 years. We're about to go for 7 on 8. What? If he's such a good teammate, why does he keep bouncing around?
Yeah.
Why does he keep bouncing around?
And he was not a good teammate. How is that his reputation?
Yes. Well, I think he's a legend and people respect him and people don't want to badmouth him, but it's very clear that he's very difficult to play with, particularly at this stage in his career. And by the way, most superstars, as they age, get more difficult.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, the last guy to know that they don't have it anymore is the guy. Russell Westbrook has kind of seemed like one of those guys. He's kind of maybe sort of a little bit starting to get it. It took playing with the best passer in the world for him to learn, oh, maybe I should cut off the ball a little bit more and know my role, and maybe I don't need the ball all the time. I don't think he would. It's honestly like it's never gonna happen, so we don't have to worry about it. But you want to talk about empowering Evan Mobley? Things Russell Westbrook won't do for 400, right there.
It's rough.
Russell Westbrook running the bench unit. Russell Westbrook would make Evan Mobley look like Thomas Bryant calling for the ball while LeBron's shooting the Kareem record-breaking shot. Like, you're just not getting the ball. You're just not getting the ball. He's made no All-Star since the bubble year. And the thing about, okay, maybe Donovan Mitchell and Max Strus would be able to police the locker room. Here's the tricky thing about that. Those dudes grew up watching this guy.
I know.
And it's really, really, when you introduce that dynamic, it's a dude like Donovan Mitchell's closer to like Dwayne Wade than Russell Westbrook, but like there are similarities in their game. I'm sure Donovan grew up modeling his game a little bit after Russ. That's a hard conversation to have, man. It's a hard conversation to have. Russell Westbrook is going to get, like, if everything goes according to plan, in this imaginary world that doesn't exist where Russell Westbrook's on the Cavs, he's going to get benched for Lonzo Ball. How does Russell Westbrook feel about that?
Yep.
How does that go over in the locker room? By the way, he's playoff liability at this point in his career. He's Mr. Try to do too much. Sometimes it legitimately still can channel itself into like, wow, look at this burst of energy this guy gives. He plays hard as heck, except on defense. He plays really hard. He plays with an attitude. That's cool. The Cavs could use that. He also that manifests itself in him turning the ball over and taking terrible shots. It's not a good fit.
Do you remember the end of the Kevin Love experience here in Cleveland? To me, that would have similar vibes. And one of the problems that Kevin had was that he thought he should be playing. He thought there was still more that he could contribute from an on-court perspective. And he was essentially looking at Dean Wade like, huh? What? Really? I'm a future Hall of Famer. And this guy's playing instead of me? Like, wait a minute. Hold on. I won a championship. My jersey might be hanging in those rafters. And you're telling me that I'm out of the rotation? Like, I can still play. I'm still Kevin Love. And him and I had those conversations shortly after he joined the Heat about how difficult it was for him to try and accept that the Cavs believed that he didn't have enough to offer on the court, because he said himself on the record, I can still play. I still have more to give. And if you have a guy that feels like that, he sits there and he looks at all the things that he's accomplished throughout the course of his career and believes that he can still play and be effective and be a contributor, they're going to be really, really unhappy not being a contributor.
I'm not going to disagree with that. And I think, Chris, you make a great point about K-Love, and obviously it made me think about Tristan Thompson just because of their relationship and all of that stuff. But Tristan Thompson also told me on the record, I'm better out than a lot of these MFs around the league, and he still believes that he can play as well, right?
But he also understands that leadership is a big part of who he is and why he's still in the NBA, or at least why he was still in the NBA at the time that he was having those conversations with you.
1,000%. 1,000%. Okay. And I preface that before we get into that you guys were not going to like these. So even the
I don't think there's one I could like less, honestly. I don't think there's one I could like less.
I agree.
well, all right. Well, here we go. Let's try this one. Cam Reddish from the LA Lakers.
One. Jesus, what are we doing? Oh, no. No.
Oh man.
Wow. I didn't think he could get worse. What's next? Ben Simmons?
No, because I don't want Ben Simmons.
Oh, okay.
No, Simmons is the best name I've heard so far. It's the best name I've heard.
Hey, what? Creature of environment, 6'8", stretch wing, growing defender. I do think that when he was with Atlanta, he was shooting the lights out when he was given opportunity. Then you get to the Lakers, your role diminishes, all these things. It's just someone that I feel like deserves a shot to have just a lot of confidence built into them, right? And obviously, you understand that he's not going to be asking for minutes because he's going to be happy with whatever is given to him. But I think there are different organizations around the league that have built in a better way to work with players, even if they're not getting minutes, right? There's never been a time where I felt like Craig Porter Jr. was losing his confidence. I never felt like Jalen Tyson was losing his confidence. And that's in part because of how these teams, or the Cleveland Cavaliers in general, have worked with their players. And I'm not saying that Cam Reddish would make an impact in any department. I just think he's a guy that, one, coming from Duke, you hear all of these stories about growing up playing against Cam Reddish, and these NBA players are talking about he's one of the best players they played against. I think that player's still in there somewhere. It just needs a place to find itself to come to fruition.
Oh my gosh. So there's a first round pedigree, obviously. And there was one point years ago where the Cavs did like Cam Reddish and they were intrigued by Cam Reddish. But the term toxic has followed him around since he left Duke. It has followed him around throughout the NBA. And he seems to have this belief that he's better than he is. And I don't think he's somebody who blends into the fabric of a team because he wants more opportunity. He wants more responsibility. He wants more usage. He wants more than what a team would be willing to give him in terms of a role. So I think there's a reason why you're talking about somebody who was a high first round pick, a lottery pick, that to this point has washed out in his career. And it's not as much about the basketball related stuff.
So yeah, Cam Reddish is how many times we got to teach you this lesson, old man, kind of player, right? We've said the first round pedigree, it gets players a long way. You go get picked high like Cam, and even like high school pedigree. Cam Reddish had a ton of high school pedigree. He's on the Duke team with RJ Barrett and Zion Williamson. I remember watching him and thinking like, "Ooh, there's some smooth parts to this guy's game." I kind of see the vision here. It's just never happened. And at this point, what are we, 6-7 years in? It ain't happening. Like Cam Reddish's path to an NBA career at this point is completely scrapping the idea he ever had of himself.
Yeah.
And becoming a role player. A 3-and-D wing. He's having ego death. Cam Reddish needs to have an ego death. He needs to let go. And clearly he has not been willing to do that. I like what Ethan said about the Cavs do a good job of working with players who don't get minutes and still maintain their confidence. That's cool. Craig Porter Jr. and Jalen Tyson can do that because they're building towards something. They're chasing a carrot. Cam's chasing something that doesn't exist. Like eventually, Kenny Atkinson wakes up every day, or the coaching staff wakes up every day and says, Craig Porter Jr., if you do this, 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 and this, like one day, then you could be this. Jalen Tyson, you do this, 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 and this. And one day, you could be a playmaking wing, 3-and-D guy, I don't know, with a little playmaking juice to you. Cam Reddish has had those conversations, and he's done none of it. All the things that he was supposed to do, he didn't do them. It's kind of just like, if I'm choosing the best, this is almost an oxymoron, but the best NBA situation for Cam Reddish right now is like a tanking team with no culture. Like in Cam Reddish's mind, like you want to get some shots up? Cool, go play for like Brooklyn or someone who just needs empty calories, bucket getting, if you can even still do that. Like, it's been so long since he's been in a position where he's had the ball in his hand. Like, I just think that he's like very dangerously flirting with like out of the league territory. So there's draft pedigree.
I mean, the latest.
We have a lot of
supposed to work out or try out for the Mavericks.
Exactly. That's where he is in his career. So if that ain't the wake up call, I don't know what is. And the Cavs don't need a wake up call guy right now.
Yeah, I don't think it's the right fit. I don't think it's the right player for roster spot number 14. I don't think it's the right fit or the right player for this organization, period.
I kind of can't believe how much he played for the Lakers. Like, it really spoke to how desperate the Lakers were wing-wise. They were like, hey, this is our defensive stopper. Since when? When does he? I guess he's athletic. I guess you're athletic. I guess he's athletic, but he can't really shoot. He doesn't. I guess he's athletic enough to defend, but he doesn't do it at a super high level. I don't know. He's which is a bummer because I liked him. I liked him in college.
Yeah, and it's just so crazy to think of him now as, like, Jimmy, you just said he's not a shooter. Like, that's what he was known for. Like, that's insane to me that like,
it was kind of always theoretical. Everyone was like, he's got a good jump shot.
Yeah.
Does he? He didn't make a high percentage of threes at Duke. Well, okay, he can, like, in Atlanta. I'm just looking at his Cam Reddish is a career 32.2% 3-point shooter on 3.4 attempts per game. He has shot better than 35% one time in his career. He's not a shooter. He's a shooter in that he shoots. They don't go in.
Again, for fans listening, I prefaced with the fact that nobody was going to like these. They're just ideas that have come up not only from the internet, but our subtexters and subscribers throwing these names around. I wanted to see what you guys thought. But
wait, somebody came up with Cam Reddish?
Hey man. Don't hate the messenger.
Was it Cam from LA?
I don't think I asked for people to send their names next to these ones. But I do think that there are players that the Cavs are looking at that we might not be thinking of, right? So, Chris, Jimmy, to end today's podcast, is there a player that you don't think is necessarily on everybody's radar that you wouldn't be surprised if the Cavs were giving them a second look? And no, I'm not talking about Victor Oladipo, who is also looking for a career resurgence, but someone outside of that.
Well, I wouldn't completely dismiss Tristan Thompson. I just think the Cavs are in no hurry with this kind of situation. I think they understand the makeup of this roster, and they understand that guy 14 is really not going to be a consequential member of the Cavs. So, given what's remaining in free agency, given what they've already done this offseason, they're just in no hurry to figure out who they're going to give this spot to. And I think it could be a big, it could be a wing, it could be a point guard. I know everybody wants answers on these things, but at the end of the day, it's more about, is it the right fit? Is it the right fitting player? And is it the right fitting person? And it may not be the most talented guy that's available in free agency. The most talented guy available in free agency is maybe Ben Simmons at this point, Russell Westbrook, Malcolm Brogdon, somebody else I'm missing, Malik Beasley, technically.
Hey, if
there.
I don't know how this works, but like Malik Beasley was gonna be like a $20 million per year player before all this happened. If he gets on the other side of this clean adjacent, would you? Oh, here we go. Would you roll the dice on Malik Beasley? I would also say nothing wrong with waiting until the buyout market. We're naming a lot of guys that you don't like right now. Okay, sign a two-way guy and see where that guy ends up. And there's gonna be a lot of Western Conference teams that think they're gonna make the playoffs. They're not gonna make the playoffs. The West is really deep. And those teams are gonna be like, well, what do we do now? This veteran player, it's time for us to tank. It's a deep draft class next year. here, go find a championship contender to help out. In the East, with the vacuum of the talent that has just left the East, there's probably some ambitious Eastern Conference play-in regulars or even below who think, hey, why can't we be a top 6 team? They're not going to be top 6 teams. They can't all be top 6 teams. And they'll look around and they'll go, maybe it's not time for us to tank. And then they'll cut loose one of their good players. A lot of guys out there. I also will just say about the Victor Oladipo thing. I saw it when Chris first subtexted about that, like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago at this point. There's something in there about how Dan Gilbert has always really liked Victor Oladipo. And I thought to myself, if only there was a way that Dan Gilbert could have gotten Victor Oladipo on the Cavs earlier. If only.
I just think that's where we're at in terms of free agency. Listen to these names that we're talking about here. How many of those are actually appealing? How many of those are you saying, hey, that guy could be a helpful player on a championship team. Hey, that guy can add some insurance. That guy could add depth. Yeah, I mean, I certainly think there are some of those names out there, but I don't know that the situation that the Cavs are offering will be appealing to those guys. So guy number 14, they're going to have to scrape the bottom of the barrel, or it has to be somebody who is just like, you know what? I probably can't play much anymore. Just let me latch on and see if I can get a ring. You're third in odds for an NBA championship. If I can't play anymore, if I can't help on the court, can I help behind the scenes while also maybe possibly getting a ring? I don't know who fits that profile, but that would be the kind of player that could be in interest to the Cavs. And some of the other guys that we talked about. Like, I do think Monte Morris is a logical fit for this team in the situation that they're in and in the situation that his career is in. I think Corey Joseph is a logical fit for this team. Is he going to complain about not getting minutes? No, he understands where he's at this stage of his career. But he can probably help you enough-ish, just get through the grind of the 82-game regular season and just be there in case. That's what this position is. Can you be there in case things don't go the way that they were expected to go, or a pile of injuries happens all at the same time? Can you prevent us from having to go and pull somebody up from the Cleveland charge?
Corey Joseph, aka the Lightning Rod, never forget. It was the Magic's lightning rod last year. But it feels like Corey Joseph has been eating innings at backup point guard since he got in the league. God bless him.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to make this last bit of context for all of our listeners. Whoever signs with the Cavs for the 14th roster spot will have to sign a veteran minimum. And people around the league understand, if you sign a veteran minimum, it is very hard to then again sign a contract in the NBA that is not for a veteran minimum. That is in part, along with what Chris mentioned with the leadership behind the scenes, why I think the best option for the Cavs is if they bring back Tristan Thompson. Even though Larry Nance has the leadership, even though Larry Nance has the pedigree and the relationships built in with players that are already here. It's not quite to the level of Tristan Thompson. It's not quite to the experience level of playing alongside the growth period like Tristan Thompson has over the last couple of years. I think it's just very important to remember what Tristan Thompson not only means to Darius Garland and other players in this locker room, but also to the Cavs organization as a whole. But yeah, it's slim pickings.
I make two quick second paper points because two things that you just mentioned, Ethan. On the Tristan Thompson point, I love Tristan Thompson. He's a franchise icon. He might have his number retired in the Raptors one day. That being said, he can't help you on the basketball court anymore. And as we get into this new era of basketball, I feel like people are saying people are acting like the second apron's been around for we've had 7 unique championships. Second apron's working. Second apron's been in effect for 2 years. We're still very much learning what the reality of the NBA looks like. But one thing I can confidently say is that depth is more important than ever. And that's 1 through 15. So can you really afford to be wasting roster spots on leadership? That's not a waste. That's the wrong word, but like, can you afford to be getting on-court zeros? I think that's an open question. I would also say that the thing that Ethan said about minimums, that's true and has been for a long time, where guys are very hesitant to sign the first one because it's hard to get off that. I wonder if that's changing, because we're gonna come to this point often now where teams are super duper capped out and they're not gonna have many options. Like, it's like, if you want to play for a championship contender, like, you might have to pick one. You might have to pick, I play for a minimum versus I play for a championship contender. So I wonder if maybe more guys are going to be more willing to do that. And we might see some more salary fluctuations, because guys who just end up having to take scraps every now and again have outsized impacts, and the cap environment changes for other teams. And they're like, well, this guy's worth, a BAE or a taxpayer MLE or something like that. Just two thoughts.
Let me just rephrase how I worded it. I think Tristan Thompson is the most logical option for the Cavs at this point, only because, as Jimmy was saying, it's very hard to get off the minimums. I don't know if Malcolm Brogdon's signing a minimum. I don't know if Chris Boucher is signing a minimum. As I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, those are the two players that I think fit the best and make the most sense for the Cavs if they want to get the most out of that 14th roster spot. But again, there's the question of, are they ready to take a step back from whatever role they had? Are they ready to have less minutes? All of these things. And on top of that, this is the list of players, not completely, but like the best available. As we mentioned, Gary Payton, Ben Simmons, Russell Westbrook, and Malcolm Brogdon and Chris Boucher. But Thomas Bryant is going overseas, guys.
Yeah.
Like, he thinks that is the best opportunity for him to get playing time, minutes, money. Like, and Thomas Bryant was a spark plug for the Indiana Pacers in last year's NBA Finals. Not a whole lot of minutes, not a whole lot of things that he did, not a whole lot of time on the floor. But when he was there, he made an impact, and he couldn't get minutes or another contract in the NBA, allegedly. Then you have guys like Amir Coffey, Cody Martin, Precious Achiuwa, Cam Payne, DeLon Wright, Markelle Fultz, Alec Burks, Torrey Craig, Landry Shamet. Like, these are guys that are, again, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel to try and find out who could be on this Cavs 14-man roster, because we know, even though you're allowed to have 15 on there, the Cavs like to keep that 15th roster spot open just in case there's someone on the buyout, just in case they want to make a midseason acquisition, right? So I do think this is a difficult conversation that we're having, and we make a lot of jokes about players that probably aren't going to do all of these things, but Tristan Thompson has shown that he's willing to play on the veteran minimum. He feels like he can make an impact, even though we think he might be in the dog days of his career. I think he wants to show what he can still do, and I think there's connections within the organization that might allow him to do that, even though that might not be the best option for the Cavs if they're looking to get something more play ready from their 14th roster spot.
Cody Martin's an interesting name from a standpoint of, the Cavs had conversations with the Charlotte Hornets about Isaac Okoro and a sign and trade last offseason when they were determining what are we going to do with Isaac's contract. And they were trying to see, okay, what is the value around the NBA? How does the NBA view Isaac in terms of his salary moving forward and in terms of what we could potentially get in a trade? One of the teams that they had conversations about, one of the players that they had conversations about, Cody Martin.
And with that last nugget of information from Cavs beat reporter Chris Fedor, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs insider and interact with Chris, me, and Jimmy by subscribing to Subtext. This is where you can let us know what you want to hear on the podcast. This is where you can send in your takes on who the Cavs should sign for the 14th-man roster spot and figure out what you thought about our takes on today's podcast. But you can only do that if you sign up for a 14-day free trial or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word STOP. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around, because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me, Chris, and Jimmy. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast. And the only way to have your voice heard is through Subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.